defiant to self-reliant, baby. I feel the weather breaking, it's turning rain into fire to take it higher, baby. With blind eyes open wide, I'm seeing it.
Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post a quick video here. This is going to be my response to Logan over at Swellhead Networks, his 700 subs contest. He put this up a little while ago and I've been meaning to get to it all week, and tonight's the night I'm going to do my response. So make sure you go check out his channel if you're not familiar with him. I'll leave a link down below here. I really like his channel most of all because he tends to introduce me to a lot of bands and music I'm just not as familiar with. You know, there's, no matter how big of music fans we are, there's just so much stuff out there, and you know, that's one of the nice things about the VCs, being able to check out people's channels and, oh, I've never heard of that, I never knew of that album, blah blah blah. And he's definitely one of those channels that I get a lot of that from. So yeah, go check out his channel, go sub, you definitely will not regret doing that. So this is his #1 fan contest is what he called it. And basically what it is he wanted us to show 5 bands, artists / albums that like we would kind of consider ourselves to be the only fan, like not just #1 as in the greatest, but kind of like the only fan. And of course he kind of meant that in a sarcastic way of saying, you know, this is an artist or something like that just not a lot of people, or very few, maybe in the VC, even say they love or talk about, or anything, like maybe catch a lot of flack all the time because everyone tends to say they hate them, even though they might be selling 1 million records or 10 million records or whatever else. Like everyone just tends to say they hate them, kind of thing. So you consider yourself kind of their #1 fan. And he did want us to kind of do it where we're not showing just a bunch of random obscure things that no one haven't even heard of. So I really tried to do that. I tried to pick all artists and all bands that pretty much everyone has heard of at some point in time, or you know, have heard at some point in time, but also maybe the ones that don't get talked about as much in the VC, or catch a lot of flack just for who they were, what they did, that type of thing. So that's kind of how I got it to the, you know, me being the #1 and only fan, if you will. So yeah, so obviously you got to keep that context, because bands wouldn't have thousands and thousands of records out there, and we wouldn't know about them if there was only one person that liked them, kind of like Logan explained in this video. So keep that in mind as I'm showing the bands I'm going to show. So #1, and I picked this one too because it's not a band that I hear people talk about a lot in the VC, and I definitely know without question I fly the flag for this band probably more than anyone else in the VC, because I am the #1 fan. But it goes back to the one and only Godsmack. So, and this is, of course, is When Legends Rise. And those of you that know my channel, you know that Godsmack is my favorite band. They're my ace #1. Every single chance I get to see them live. I think I've seen them, what, 14, 15 times, something like that. Never gets old. I never get tired of listening to their albums. They're just my absolute favorite band, without question. And so this is their release from 2018, When Legends Rise. Another fantastic album. And yeah, like I said, I am their absolute #1 fan. And I don't hear a lot of people talk about Godsmack here in the VC. Could also be because they've only had 3 of their albums released on vinyl. And with the exception of this one, the other 2, 1000 Horsepower, you know, unless you're willing to pay $100 or so to get a good copy of that, you won't have it. And their self-titled album, unless you're willing to pay $250, $200 for that one, you won't have it. Luckily, I got both of those when they first came out, and they were, you know, 20-something bucks a piece. So that could be a reason. But just in general, Godsmack's not a band that I hear a ton about, and it's certainly one that, like I said, I fly the flag big time, because this is my absolute favorite band. Love everything they do and always will. And to the degree that I really like them, we have this copy here, which I think is like the greenish marble. I can't remember which one because this one's still sealed actually. No, it's not. Hold on. This is, oh yeah, this is the kind of clear smoke colored vinyl there, as well as a ticket from the last time I saw them in concert in there. But then I also had to have the red vinyl, so I had to get that one, and also had to get the gray marble vinyl. So I had to get all the colors, and I think there's also a blue marble one, but if I remember correctly, I think that's one that was issued through their fan website or something, and it's autographed, and you know, just not an easy one to get and all that type of stuff. But yeah, I'm a #1 fan. That's why I have 3 different copies of that album. And I used to be someone who collected a lot of multiple copies of artists, but I don't really do that anymore. So when you do see that in my collection, it usually is because it's you know, a band that or an album that I really, really dig and appreciate, because I purged a lot of my doubles. So so moving right along, the next one here. Yep, the one and only Kenny G Live. I love Kenny G, always have. And this is definitely an artist and an album that I may be the only fan in the VC about, but again, I mean, it sold a gazillion copies, and there was a live DVD of it and the whole nine, and I like Kenny G. I know it's kind of, you know, elevator music and that type of thing, but what I really hear when someone says elevator music, even when I say it, it just means to me it's extremely melody driven, you know, kind of simple, very, very, very accessible to a lot of different people. That's what elevator music means to me. It doesn't mean sucks. It just means it's very simple and very easy to take in, and a lot of people that like a lot of different genres of music can take it in. And that's kind of what Kenny G is. So kind of a little funny story about that is, you know, like it seems like the last few videos I've been dropping little bits of history with the VC and all of that. But sorry, record's over. Let me set it back. Okay, but some a little bit of history there. So I've always kind of told you the story about when I first started making videos, and I was really, you know, there were no one watching my videos, no one really responding and that type of thing, because there was no vinyl community or people really talking about vinyl. And then I always mention about the guy What's Up Pomadi, who asked me, what are your 5 most influential albums that really kind of, you know, made your musical taste today? And I spent a bunch of days thinking about those 5. I picked those 5 and I made a video, and then Dan from Canada saw it and made a response, and that, to my knowledge, was kind of like the first 2 people interacting in what became the VC. Well, oddly, one of the things that made Dan respond was that this was one of the 5 albums that I picked as being one of my 5 most influential albums that really guided my taste today. Because I'm a big jazz fan, you know, I love my Coltrane, love my Miles, love my Nat Coleman, Shep, Mobley, you know, on and on and on and on. But all of that started by me getting into this album. I had not listened to any jazz prior to this, and a friend of mine back in college had a cassette, and I just borrowed it one day and started listening to it. And again, just being very accessible, the whole nine. I was like, man, this Kenny guy, I like him. And I really got into this, and discovering all things jazz beyond this album was responsible for it. So yeah, so I had to list it as one of the 5 most influential albums that had really guided my musical taste overall to that point. But, you know, great album, good songs like, you know, Going Home, Midnight Motion, Songbird, Uncle Al. I mean, it really is a good freaking album, and I love it. I even have the DVD of this as well. Well, and the CD and the cassette too. So again, it's not just something that sits on the shelf. I love playing that. So I have this 89 US pressing. Is that what it is? Yeah, 89 US pressing. And then I also have this sealed copy BMG release there too. So really, really cool album. Love Kenny, and I'm definitely a #1 fan. Be very curious, of course, if anybody else out there is actually a fan of Kenny G. So another one I think that falls on that list would be an artist that kind of everyone knows the name, but few people here and there may fly the flag, but I do consider myself a #1 fan of Enya. And this, of course, is A Day Without Rain, which is my absolute favorite album by her. Enya is one of those artists where literally when I think about all the artists that are alive today, if I had a list of 5 whom I could see in concert today, she would be one of the 5 artists that I would choose to be able to see live. Just like the perfect concert in the perfect settings with the perfect performance, she would be one of the 5 that I would like to see. So that's how high up she is on my #1 fan. And of course, she's one that catches a lot of flack. You don't hear a ton of people talking about loving Enya. Although I did just recently, come into contact here in the past few weeks with someone in the VC who's a gigantic Enya fan, and we've made those comments back and forth, so he knows who he is. But yeah, Day Without Rain is just an absolute beautiful album. I mean, this album, you can really kind of close your eyes to it and go to magical places. Let's just put it that way. So I consider myself a #1 fan with Enya, Day Without Rain. The next one here, I'm taking the #1 fan stance based on what you typically hear about this band. And again, it's one that you don't see a ton of people flying the flag for. Even if they like them, I don't think you necessarily hear them flying the flag for them very often. And it's Creed. And this is Creed's greatest hits. And Creed is kind of like a Coldplay. It's just one of those bands. It's just kind of cool to hate them. They kind of became one of those bands, But it's like, well, Coldplay's selling a million records, and Creed's selling a million records, but everybody hates them. It's like, well, something's not right there. Somebody's digging them. But I'm definitely one that does. I think Creed is fantastic. I mean, yes, they were every time a new style of music or a new movement in music takes over, which during this time frame was going to be like your grunge, right, for the most part, grunge and hard alternative, but there's always some element of it that ends up going more pop and radio friendly. And Creed was more of the pop radio friendly version of grunge stuff. So I think that's why a lot of people hate them, because it goes back to the you're not keeping it real and you're selling out and you're, crap that people say. But to me, I think Creed made fantastic music. They're one of the few bands that could do, big, powerful, just big guitar powerful anthems, and yet still do it by making some of the most emotional songs. And I've said this before, very few bands can mix those two, can go big and heavy and draw serious emotion, not intensity, but emotion in it as well. That's not an easy thing to do. And then take all of that and turn it into very anthem-like things. That's, as much as people want to crack on it, that is kind of a skill. That is not an easy thing for a band to do. And Creed did it time after time after time, hit after hit after hit. And I freaking love them. I don't care what anybody says. So I definitely fly the flag for them, and I know they're definitely a very hated band, so I'll put this in one of my, #1 fan. I remember who's the lead singer from Mudhoney? Drawing a total blank right now. I think it was in that Metal Evolution where they were interviewing him, and because they were talking about the grunge and all of that, and he asked them what they thought about Creed, and he was like, Creed and a few other bands he named, like I just couldn't stand them. He called them the Vow bands or whatever. And he was like, like the Vow bands, like what does that mean? He goes, all those bands that sing that. I had to laugh my ass off because it was true. But the A-E-I-O-U thing. But yeah, so again, I think Creed is freaking awesome. So when they finally had something that came out on vinyl, which was awesome, they did his greatest hits, and it was a Walmart exclusive, I ordered 3 of them. Because number one, I knew they were going to be instant grail status, right? And that's exactly what happened. So I ordered 3, and within 3 or 4 weeks after the release, I sold 1 and made back the money I paid for all three. I think there was about a $10 or $15 difference. So in my book, to have a listening copy and a sealed copy, I only paid 15 bucks for these two, and freaking worth it. Torn, My Own Prison, What's This Life For, Are You Ready, Higher, With Arms Wide Open, What If, One Last Breath, My Sacrifice. I'm the #1 fan. I don't care. Love Creed. Love what they did. And one more time here. Sorry, I gotta hear the same side 3 times, but great album anyway. And the last one here, there might be 2 other people in the VC who might be as big of fans of this album. Beyond that, we might actually be the only 3 people that ever bought this album. And it is Grease 2 soundtrack. And this is no joke whatsoever. I love this album. If you talk about song for song, albums I listen to and enjoy the most in my collection, song for song from beginning to end, this is definitely going to fall in the top 50 of albums in my collection. I mean, this music is just, it goes all just deep back into my childhood, and I've loved it ever since, and I just never get tired of listening to it. And I fly the flag big time for Grease 2. And it's so funny, like, you know, thinking about the one and only fan, you know, my brother, who's an actor out in Hollywood, he's a huge Grease 2 fan as well. And a couple of years ago, he actually did some work on a show with the same guy who played Goose in Grease 2. And it was so funny because when he was telling him how much, you know, my brother and I loved Grease 2, and it's just, and his response was, we didn't think anybody liked that thing. Like, even he wasn't, you know, like, yeah, that was great, we loved it. He was like, I can't believe I found someone that liked it. So he wasn't even necessarily a fan of it, but man, I can watch this movie all day long, and I can play this soundtrack all freaking night. So I'll definitely fly the flag as the #1 fan of Grease 2. And I venture to say, out of everyone here in the VC, I would definitely challenge you if you think you're a bigger fan of the Grease 2 soundtrack than me, because I cannot get enough of that album. So there you go, Logan, man. That's my 5. As always, I'm going to be very curious about these comments. Let me know what you think, and we will talk to you soon, VC. All right, take care, guys.